Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Building a Record Collection, or How to Build a Record Library in 1953, courtesy of New York Times critic Howard Taubman. And now we're up to choral music. And all of these lists have the A list, the basic list, and B list, the extended list. And it's so interesting to see what these are. I think back in 1953 that choral music was a lot more mainstream, in a sense, than it is today. Today, things have been segregated a lot. They tend to be in their own niche. And the choral music repertoire was well, the United States particularly was a more Christian religious society than it is today. There's still, of course, a tremendous amount of choral activity everywhere in churches and other religious institutions, but it was much more mainstream. I mean, if you turned on the TV at night on Sundays, you'd see the sermon, you'd hear the choirs doing these pieces. Today, that's much less of a thing. It's kind of on cable, It's on, it used to be on channel 375, and now it's on, the whatever network. But I think that when you see this list, you'll see it. You'll see what I mean. I mean, these are works that are well known. They're all pretty well known. But there's a good body of choral music that was recorded, and the recommendations, I think, are more willing to go a little bit further afield for 1953, especially than you might have expect initially, especially given what the discography was, what was available readily. So let's go through the list, shall we? Okay, Bach, Cantata number 4, Christ lag in Todesbanden on the Bach Guild. Yeah, Vanguard, the Bach Guild. Those are some very fine performances on that in that series. Number 80, Ein feste Burg. Number 140, Wachet auf. And here's an interesting one, Cantata number 201, Phoebus and Pan, one of the secular cantatas. We don't hear that one very often, so that was an enterprising choice because these were available. And again, it was a Bach Guild recording. And let's see, the Christmas Oratorio on Vox, 3 discs. The Easter Oratorio on the Bach Guild. The B minor Mass on Westminster, 3 discs. Is it probably Scherken's recording with the 400-year-long Kyrie? Was it 15 minutes long for the first chorus or something? Insane tempos. And that may have been the stereo one. I don't remember, but okay. And one of you may be able to tell me which one that was. The St. John Passion on Vox, 3 discs, and the St. Matthew Passion on Vox, 4 discs. Note the label. It's all Bach Guild, which was Vanguard, or Vox. There was nothing on a major label. No complete major Bach works that were readily recommendable. Doesn't that blow your mind? I mean, especially given what's happened since, what we have today on regular instruments and period instruments, on everything. But it was either Vox or Westminster. It was specialty, small labels that were off the beaten path because that Baroque repertoire was performed. It was performance repertoire. It was done, but it wasn't recorded. It wasn't home listening music. It was real liturgical music, and it was played in churches to the extent it was played at all. So that I think is really kind of remarkable, at least in the United States, for what was available in the United States. I find that amazing. Beethoven, the Missa Solemnis, again, Vox, 2 discs. Probably the Klemperer recording. But wow, I mean, the Missa Solemnis that everybody and their mother does, starting in the late 50s and early 60s. It was, one of the issues with these larger choral works, of course, was that they really needed long playing records. They were almost impossible to record in the days of 78s. I mean, they just sounded awful. And so you needed LPs, you needed good sounding mono, better even stereo. So it wasn't so much a function of instrumental forces and period versus whatever, or any of that stuff that really didn't exist then. It was a question of just the technical ability to do it, especially these large scale pieces. But look at what they say. L'Enfance du Christ, Vox on 2 discs, and the Berlioz Requiem, Columbia, 2 discs. Was that Beecham's recording probably, or somebody like that? Kind of fascinating, the Requiem and L'Enfance du Christ, when they're being so, 1953. I don't know, I just find this remarkable. I really do, looking at these things to see what was available and what wasn't. And then we've got Brahms, the German Requiem, of course, on Columbia, 2 discs. Bruno Walter's recording, likely is not. The Liebeslieder Waltzes on Capitol. Buxtehude Magnificat. Well, that's interesting. On Renaissance. I mean, I remember the Buxtehude Magnificat. I sang the Buxtehude Magnificat when I was in our high school choir. We did it. We did it in part of our annual Christmas concert at Trinity Church on the Green in New Haven. I even remember it. Magnificata nima meo dominum et exultavit spiritus meus. I mean, you don't want me to sing the rest of it, but we did it. I mean, I remember it. It was popular in its day. William Byrd, the Mass for Five Voices on London. Oh, that's an interesting choice, isn't it? Christmas carols with the Randolph Singers, the Trapp Family on Decca, or the Shaw Chorale on Victor. You've got your choice of Christmas carols. The fun Trapp Family Singers, fresh from The Sound of Music. Whoa. Fauré Requiem. And this is fascinating what they say about this, by the way. Let me get to this. They say, Fauré's lovely, quiet Requiem deserves to be better known. I mean, it wasn't ubiquitous then as it became. It is one of the most sensitive scores of its kind. Yes, it is. It is. And most people had never heard it back then. Handel. This is very interesting. The Dettingen Te Deum on WCFM. Messiah on Victor, 4 discs. And the Utrecht Te Deum on Haydn Society. That's it from Handel? Can you believe it? Handel, the choral conductor, someone to whom evidently we were paying more lip service than paying attention to, because Messiah obviously was going to be there, but everything, I mean, no coronation anthems, I mean, no Ode to St. Cecilia's Day, no, all the other oratorios. I mean, whew, what a shocker that is, isn't it? I mean, in the A list, in the B list, we'll see what else they have. But that's the A list for Handel? I mean, not even Israel and Egypt? I don't believe it. Haydn, The Creations and the Seasons. They're both available because they are on Haydn Society, 3 discs. And I have to say, I have seen probably more performances of The Creation than any other choral work done by local churches. It's done all the time by local churches with organ accompaniment, for the most part, not full orchestra. It comes off quite well. I think the last time I saw it was at St. Bart's on Park Avenue, and it was a very nice performance. But so, that's a very, very popular work. I mean, The Heavens Are Telling is right up there with the Hallelujah Chorus as sort of a major choral, expostulation there. And you could hear it all the time in real church music. Mozart, the Coronation Mass on Haydn Society, the Mass in C minor on Haydn Society, and the Requiem on London. 2 discs for the Mozart Requiem. Took 2 discs. Yeah, who knew? Prokofiev, Alexander Nevsky on Columbia. Yeah, well, there you go. And that was new. That was really kind of new at the time. Schubert, the Mass in E flat on Vox, and the Mass in G on Vox. Schubert's Masses are still rarities. So it's really cool to see them being recommended here. Spirituals, the Depart Infantry Chorus on Columbia. Stravinsky, Symphony of Psalms on London. Verdi Requiem, Victor, 2 discs. And that is the entire list. That's it. That's the whole deal for choral music, B to V. And what a strange list, isn't it? It's a collection of things we know well and things that we know less well. Some of them are still not so well known. Some of them are completely, we're overflowing with them these days. But note the dearth of major labels. Remember what the major labels were: Columbia, RCA, London, or Decca. There's like practically nothing in the United States at that time. It was all Vox. It was all these smaller, more enterprising labels, Westminster, and the society labels, Haydn Society, Bach Guild. That's what was available. That's what determined the repertoire. I find that really, really interesting. And I think, knowing the discography as we do now, it's remarkable. Very, very remarkable. I mean, we were right on the cusp of the LP explosion when vast swaths of repertoire were going to be recorded and recorded by big name artists on labels, big name labels. But it hadn't happened yet. So keep on listening, friends. We're going to do the B list next. Take care.